G'day guys, the NRL podcast back by popular demand after a great start last week. How was your weekend, Rego?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Some
Enjoy
great
the footy?
footy. Yeah, some great footy on the weekend. Most notably the Eels and Bulldogs game. It was one of the highlights of the round.
What a shame the Dogs couldn't get up and cause an upset again.
Yeah, it's that little dodgy call where they should have gone to video ref there. End up costing the game, and most notably Tolman as well, not going for goals, making the brain snap of going for the quick tap.
He's got to be the last person you want your team when you're chasing points, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those players. As soon as he gets the ball, it's just a guaranteed tackle.
Just the end of the play.
I don't mean to be slack to the poor guy, but he's definitely towards the low end of his career.
I hope Aiden's not listening out there.
Yeah.
Well, so what was going off that? What was your highlight of the week?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that, I think the Bulldogs' performance is definitely what the highlight was. Under their new coach, I can't fault them at the moment. They're playing really good football. It kind of reminds me what they experienced last year, when they had such a poor start of the year, and then towards the end they started coming good. And I think they're kind of doing a similar thing this year, but who knows if they'll carry on to next season.
They're a real gritty side that you can never turn up and expect to beat the Dogs. Even though they might be down the ladder the last couple of years, they always are there or thereabouts in the game. So
exactly, yeah.
They don't give a lot away, and they've got really good defence. Their attack might not be up to the top teams, but their defence, they don't give much away. So no, they're one team, no easy beat.
Well, what was your highlight of the week?
Yeah, I mean, there was another great round of footy, but I think it all started with the Rabbitohs and the Dragons kicking off the Indigenous round, and what a way to start it with all Rabbitohs points scored by Indigenous players. I think it was a great spectacle for the game and really kicked things off in fashion. There was a few. I know the South Sydney side have a lot of Indigenous players, but they really stole the show, and it was a good game of footy too. Really ebbed and flowed throughout the whole game, and Rabbitohs just ended up on top.
I think that performance just proves how much of an influence that Latrell Mitchell has on the Rabbitohs side. His difference, him being in that game, basically was the difference, especially towards the end of that first half when he scored that try. He just lifted the whole team. I don't think you can fault Cody Walker in that game. He really has been struggling this season, and that performance there just solidified his selection in the team every week. And the fact he set up a try and he scored two himself. I think that was a fantastic performance, especially when Adam Reynolds went down early in the first half.
Yeah, I think it was almost a blessing in disguise for Cody Walker, really. He really stepped up and took control of the side, and it had enormous benefits for the team. And just going back when you mentioned about Latrell, I think if he played in the last couple of games for South Sydney, I think they would have had a much better chance of winning. In fact, I think they would have won those games because it allows Johnson to go on the wing, and he is just an out-and-out finisher. I mean, he scored a hat-trick, ran for 300 metres, even set up a try. So him being on the wing, Johnson at fullback, it just gives them way more attack, way more better balance to their side. So, I mean, for me, my player of the round could have probably been Alex Johnson. It was just on the wing was pretty astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your point about Latrell Mitchell, I think easily could have beaten both Newcastle and Raiders in the last 2 weeks if he was playing. Especially that Newcastle game where you were really struggling. Yeah. You were really struggling to find points until the last 20 minutes or so, and then you kicked into the gear.
So what was your highlight of the round, Alexander?
One word: Avarillo.
What a try that was. I mean, we've seen some finishes in the last couple of years, but that one was just outstanding, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how these wingers get into this position. I know he's not a winger, but I mean those outside backs, they get into their moves, and I don't know how you can possibly train.
They're contortionists.
Yeah, it's almost, if you look at the way he put the ball down, it's almost as if he was going out, and then he somehow positioned the ball to angle in the perfect position
and to not lose control of the ball either.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you go back to that Ferguson no try a couple of weeks ago. I just don't understand how he did it. It's easy enough to just jump like that, but to have a ball in your hand, still hold on to it and put the ball down, it just freaks.
They must do something training for that, and acrobats or whatever. I don't know, but the Charlie Stain scored another good one as well. I mean, he's only 100 minutes into his career, and he's got 6 tries. He must be thinking, how easy is this first grade stuff?
Yeah, he's another up and coming junior from the Penrith Panthers. It just coming out of the woodwork. I don't know. They've got such a good junior base, and I just can't fault their development.
Yeah.
Just seem like every season they have a new gun player. Kikau, Coruscant. They just keep them going.
I mean, Gus. Is that Gus doing that? Is that his impact?
Yeah, well, he planted the seeds originally. I think he cleaned out a lot of the dead weight. Like, I know they ended up going on to bigger and better things like Wade Graham and Jennings, for example. But, I mean, by doing that, he was able to invest in the junior base and,
It's paying dividends now.
Yeah.
So while we're on Penrith, do you think they're the real deal this year?
Look, they had a fantastic display against Manly with a dominant thrashing against them, 42-12. As I think for them being a threat in the finals, I think Cleary is the key. He's a very skillful, very, very fit player.
Organised.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fault his organisation skills. I think if Penrith are going to go deep in the finals, they need to rely on Nathan Cleary to have a 10 out of 10 performance every game. But in terms of how I think they will go in the finals, I just don't think they have enough experience in order to put together 2 back-to-back wins in the finals. I'm just looking at their spine. I think Coruscant is their most experienced player.
Really?
Yeah. Well, who else? I mean, Dylan Edwards, I think he's got a couple of games under his belt.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. A lot of teams who they don't really come into finals in their first year and win it. They usually, top 4 there or thereabouts, and it takes them a few big finals losses to know what it takes to win those games.
But they have been playing well, but who have they beaten this year that has been convincing? They've beaten Melbourne. They did beat Melbourne really well, but the thing is, when Penrith played that game, they ransacked Melbourne. Melbourne were not expecting that. And I think when it comes to a finals time, I think Melbourne will be prepared and they will, practice and they will know where to target Penrith.
And Penrith, they've had an easy run, so to say, the last month or so. But I think Manly, a lot of people tip Manly to win that. They saw an upset coming because Penrith haven't been at their best. They might have been due for a loss, but geez, they came out to play that game. They must have had that in the calendar and thought that's the game we've got to be up for.
Yeah. I mean, and they also had a very close game against Parramatta. But in saying that, I think that Parramatta were in control for the majority of that game. In terms of them going deep in the finals, I just don't see it. What about you?
Look, as I said before, I think you need to lose a couple of those big finals games to be able to win them. Like you don't often see a team come from the below bottom 8 in 1 year and then the next year win the premiership. It's rare. Usually a team has that near miss and they come back hungry the next year. So I still, in the big games, I still feel like Storm and the Roosters will have them covered. But geez, they're playing well at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, you basically can only beat who you have in front of you. So I think that's awesome.
And they're doing that. So good luck to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, on to the next topic we've got here about underperforming players. I know we had this discussion on Friday, and we'll mention a couple of names. Milford was one of them that came up.
Yeah.
Well, look, he's copped a hammering as to being the main reason why Brisbane have been the team that underperforming. And
do you think it's warranted? Do you think it's fair?
Yeah, I think it is. If you look at his stats over the last couple of years, if you look at his running meters, and you'll see a gradual decline in his running meters. Last year, it was slightly up, but if you compare it back to the 2015 season, it's down almost nearly 50%. So in the 2015 season, he was up to nearly 120 average run meters per game. He's now down to 73, and that's the lowest career average he has ever had. And I think that's his strength, his running game.
Yeah.
And I think also the fact that he hasn't had a steady halfback has also impacted his season this year. What do you think?
Well, you'd think that this rule change with the set restart, it's going to speed up the ruck. It's going to benefit the little men on the field to be able to jink and get their way through the pack of the tired forwards. But he's just not having that impact.
Exactly.
He's got a good forward pack that lays the platform most weeks. I mean, they are underperforming like this year, obviously, but you look at who they've got, and when it comes to organising, he's just so below par. And they brought Brodie Croft in to be able to do that role, but he's probably, I don't think he's the man to do that either. I mean, it's as he's shown this year, but. Yeah, Milford, for what he's experienced playing now, he's been around for a number of years. He's on a very high salary, and he's just not delivering.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the rule changes. Yeah, he's the type of player that you would want in your team with that new rule change on paper, but for whatever reason, it's just not working for him. Another player that I was thinking about this week is Kalen Ponga. I know that he's a great player. What do you think about that? So I note that he is on par roughly for the same kind of stats. So he's got 5 try assists and 4 tries this year with 6 line breaks and an average running meters of 188, which is up from last year. But for whatever reason, whenever I see him get the ball inside the 20, it just seemed last year that whenever he would get that ball, that there would always be an overlap or something dangerous happening around him. This year, it just seems like, I don't know if the defense is marking up on him and a bit wary of him, but it just, for whatever reason, he's just not impacting the game as well as he was.
I tend to agree, to be honest. I like you said, you're watching the Knights and you just expect, I think, a lot more from him because of how he was going last year. And you look at a lot of the fullbacks, Tedesco, Travojevic, they've all stepped their game up to a completely another level. And I don't think Ponga's gone with them the last year or so this year. I just think he's still at that same pace he was last year. And maybe defense have worked him out. I mean, in the Knights side, you've basically got Pearce and Ponga, who in their attack, Kurt Mann. He's not like teams are gonna if they shut down Pearce and Ponga.
Yeah, and even Pearce,
they've got nothing.
Even Pearce, I mean, it's mostly his running game and kicking. He does play a similar type of game to Ponga, so maybe that's just, you're right, like hit the nail on the head where. That's why maybe you've seen Kurt Mann score a couple of tries this year, just because they're not expecting him to run the ball and break the line. In terms of another player who I think, well, you've brought it up. You had a fight with Damien Kent.
Damien
Kent. Sorry.
Well, I'll take charge on this. I think this, like Damien Cook, last year, did he make his debut last year for Australia in New South Wales? Or was it the year before? But anyway, the last 3 or 4 years, his progression as a hooker has been scintillating. He's just come out of nowhere, and he's been, if not the best hooker in the game the last couple of years. Obviously you got Cameron Smith, but Cook's rise has been something to behold. And this year, I don't know what it is. As I mentioned with Ponga, the rule change is designed for players like these to take advantage. And it's Cook, when he comes out of dummy half, he does that scoop when the marker's a bit off, the defence is backpedaling. He's getting out, he's making the meters, but nothing's happening. It looks like he's getting out and he doesn't know what to do with himself, doesn't know whether to take the meters, doesn't know whether to hit someone.
Do you think it's one of those things where the players around him just don't know what they're doing?
And that's another question I ask, because he does give balls to people, but there's no one hitting holes for him, because sometimes he does the work, he gets out, but then it just goes to nothing. We lose all the momentum, there's no another quick play of the ball, and that just derails their attack. So I don't know if it's whether it's a Wayne Bennett thing, whether he's not. That's
possible, yeah. It might be a coaching thing. But what I have been frustrated with watching Damien Cook this year is near the line when he just dumps it to a forward near the line and just wastes tackles. It just seems like he's just got no idea. I think there's so many times when there's been an overlap, and instead of dumping it out to Walker, he'll just pass it off to Burgess or Murray. It just seems like a waste.
And I think that's the most overrated low percentage play in the game. Giving a face ball when you're attacking on their line, giving a face ball to a forward, crash ball. The pass has to be 100% right for the forward to catch it. And even then, you can't trust bloody Tom Burgess to catch it close to the line. He drops it the best of times, but
he's got shit in his
it's just not the play. And I don't know. He's just not. His decision making is below par, and for a hooker, that's what they're paid to do. That their attack stems from the hooker. He gives the ball to where he sets up the plays. So if he's not giving it where the halves want him to, then it's pretty hard for them to score points.
It is interesting because his average run meters is actually up to 95, down from last. last year it was 78, and this year it's 95.
But it's the impact.
But yeah, I mean, like maybe he was just being a bit more selective. Maybe teams have also worked him out. But like again, a common theme with all these players is that we think the rule changes should benefit them, but it doesn't seem like it is. Like it just seems they're just getting lost in the shuffle, and teams are working them out. I guess that happens with players. Like they just struggle to adapt and change their game plan based on the circumstances at hand. And yeah, teams do smarten up, and a lot of teams do video, and it's so easy to wake up to these little things that players do well.
Well, I just hope Cook can start having the damaging impact that he had last year, because he's just such an exciting player to watch.
Right. The last player I was going to discuss is Corey Norman. So, as the time of recording this, he has been dropped, and I know we're discussing this on Friday that he offers nothing for the St George team. I think he is actually the reason why their attack has been stifled. His kicking game has been off. Those amazing cut-out balls he used to do, even last year, it just seems like he hasn't done much. I remember that game against Parramatta where Sivo knocked him out and he got injured. That kind of was his downfall. He just hasn't been the same since. And his combination with Clune, I think, actually is better than his combination with Hunt. But for whatever reason, whenever he plays with Hunt, I just think their styles clash and they just don't gel well. And I think what he needs to do better is just to concentrate on his running game and stop dancing around. Like when he runs the ball, it just seems that he doesn't run with any intent. It reminds me a bit like Soward, where Soward would take on the line and then he'd just die with the ball.
Yeah.
That's what it... Yeah.
Well, they moved him to fullback not long ago to do that, didn't they? To try and get him to just focus on two aspects of his game, get that right before coming back into the halves. But it obviously hasn't worked. And he just looks a bit disinterested, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where he's just lacking motivation.
Yeah, confidence, big thing.
Yeah, that's another thing.
But yeah, he is... Well, I mean, we were half an hour too late to the call. I mean, he's been dropped now, but...
Yeah, I mean, I've been calling for him to be dropped because me being a St George fan, I think that Sailor is definitely a good prospect, and if you don't give him game time, he's the type of player that will go to another club and star for them. So I think any opportunity you can give to Sailor, I think will be the best option because he just exudes confidence. He doesn't. Yesterday, I mean, this week against Rabbitohs, where he threw an intercept and he didn't even drop his head. Like he did drop his head, but he then went on 5 minutes later to set up the try to level it up. So
yeah,
it takes a lot of confidence out from his father, I think.
Yeah, and he's got a lot to give, doesn't he? Big old deal. He loves himself more than anyone. But that's a great point you make. I mean, a lot of players, especially young, will drop their head. They've lost the game. Be done with the match. But he turned, to his credit, set up a try late in the game, was to no avail, but it's good to see. And I think Sailor has a lot more upside to Norman. I mean, Dragons are still a chance of making the 8, but I think for the team's progression, I think Sailor has to be getting as much game time as possible.
Yeah, I think St George do also have another couple of juniors coming up. Ramsey is an option at fullback, but it is difficult with Dufty there playing in such good form. And they've also got Jaden Sullivan coming up, and he's been touted as being one of the best halfbacks that the club has had for years. So it will be interesting times for St George to see what they do, especially with Norman being off contract next year. Yeah.
Moving on, so we've a couple of issues that have risen during the week. Firstly, Nathan Cleary. Now it's come out in the news that he will be suspended 6 points of his Dally M tally, which due to the TikTok suspension halfway through the year during Corona.
So was this a delayed reaction? Is that what has happened?
I think so. I mean, this happened months ago now. It was a big scandal, quite humorous if you ask me, but yeah, it's having some ramifications on Cleary's chances of winning the most prestigious award in the game.
Look, I don't think it's humorous at all. The fact that he put the game in jeopardy, basically. This is when coronavirus cases, we had to have up to 200 cases a day in New South Wales, and he was out socialising with these bimbos, basically. I can't say it. And the thing is,
I hope they're not listening.
And this has always been this has always been a thing where if you get suspended, you will get deducted points. So I don't see an issue here. And the fact that what Cleary did shouldn't be something to sneeze at. He put the game in jeopardy, and he did learn his lesson. And yes, he also did try and make a joke out of it when that fan was kind of taking the piss out of him.
Yeah, I know. It was a stupid thing to do, but I mean, it's a TikTok video that was... yeah, I can see the funny side to it, but he's an idiot. I mean, and is the Dally M, I'm not sure on the whole jury around it, but is it a best and fairest award, or is it purely based on your on-field performances? Yeah,
no, it is based on your on-field performances. But if there is off-field things that happen, then you should be deducted.
You think that's that? So because I know the AFL do that. If you've got one off-field or even an on-field incident, if you're suspended for one game in the AFL, you cannot win their Brownlow Award.
Just one
of the Dally M. Yeah. So you're happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that because it's a representation of the game.
Yeah, you're right.
Todd Carney won the Dally M, and every time that they had that photo of him pissing in his mouth, they kept on referring to him as Dally M winner Todd Carney. So it shouldn't be something that should be dragged through the dirt.
Yeah.
And I mean, they represent the game moving forward basically for the next 10 years. Everyone remembers who the Dally M winner is. You never see any indiscretions from Cronk, Slater, and Smith, Thurston, Tamalolo. They're just great representations of the game, and you can't fault them.
That's a good point. So, hopefully, Cleary, I think he has learnt from this. And so he loses 6 points. What if he still wins the Dally M?
Well, I mean, that's possible. But,
good luck to him.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's probably the person that will get majority of the points at Penrith, if not him or Kikau.
Yeah.
So to be honest, he'd probably be my front runner for the Dally M right now if I was to pick it.
Even with the 6 points.
Even with the 6 points, yeah.
Jeez.
Well, who else would be in the Grant?
Was he leading?
No, he was on 11 points, and the leader was Harry Grant at the time when he went behind closed doors.
This is the thing with the Dally M. Like, if you're in a team full of stars, it's really hard, even if you're one of the best players in the game, it's so hard to clock up votes because you've got players taking them off you. But Harry Grant, for example, if Tigers have a good game, there's not many players in that team to take points off him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think who they would have.
Benji.
Yeah, but he's not gonna.
It'll be Benji or Harry Grant, and the way it's going, Harry Grant's polling in most games, they win.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the flawed system of the Dally M. Like, even when Tuivasa-Sheck won, I don't think he was the best player that year. And to be honest, no one really expected him to win going in. I think he was I think the favourites were like $2 and $3, and you never see that for a Dally M. Usually there's a clear-cut winner or choice.
Yeah, well, that proves what I was saying with the Warriors. If Warriors win, Tuivasa is going to get 2 or 3 points.
Exactly, because there's no one really else to pick from.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Warriors, so they've recently turned things around. There was a strong performance against the Roosters and a hard-fought win against the Tigers. But there's been some astonishing news that has come out with Todd Payten. So Todd Payten obviously has been a revelation for the club. The players obviously want to play for him. They've been putting some great performances in, but he's rejected the Warriors coaching job. And I think there's rumours now that the Cowboys gig is now available for him.
So So that suggests to me that he just doesn't want to move countries.
Well,
I mean, he's got family issues, which he's alluded to, but.
Yeah, I mean,
who would want to take the Warriors job? Do you blame him?
Well, I mean, it is a tough decision to make. I mean, he has got his wife's father's just started chemotherapy, and I think he's just. I don't think you want to be away from family when it comes to that, and it's a big decision to move to a different country and go to New Zealand, and especially if there's a Cowboys coach role looming. I think that's probably a better option, especially with the kind of players they have around them with Michael Morgan and. Yeah, I think they just got a better team.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I was tossing up between the Cowboys and the Warriors, I know which one I'd want to coach, and it wouldn't be the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's one of those things where I think there's two options to pick from, Cowboys or Warriors, and I think you would have to go for Cowboys.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to bring up this week?
Well, today announced Blake, speaking on the Warriors again, big week for them. Blake Green has quit the Warriors and joined Knights as of today, effective immediately. And the cut-off, I think, for the deadline was I think it was today as well. Tomorrow was the
Oh,
last
wow,
day.
you're right. I never thought about that because that was June 30 deadline.
No, because they extended it because of
Okay,
Corona. So,
I think it's very timely. I think it's a great signing for the Newcastle Knights because they've both had McCulloch and Watson, which were both their utility players, get injured. So now they can put Mann at hooker. I know he's not the best option to put at hooker, but then they can just put in Green to play with Pearce and just put the pressure off Ponga and Pearce, as we were discussing before, where they now have an alternative option in attack. And I think that's a really good sign for Newcastle, and hopefully they can push now for a top 4 spot, which I don't personally think they will get, but if they can get a couple of wins together, I think they can push for it.
Well, that leads us into our segment, pass or play. So Blake Green to the Knights. I mean, you just touched on it. You're gonna play.
I'm gonna play that one.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna run that forward.
Take a big hit up. Well, look, I think I have to. Well, I'm going to disagree just to make it a bit more.
Pass
I'm going to pass. I'm going to throw a big.
What's the downside?
Big cutout. Well, I think the Knights coaching staff are putting all their eggs into this season. So they obviously are looking with rose-coloured glasses and thinking they've got a real crack and make it at winning the premiership because they had a debutant last week. I can't think of his name for the life of me, but he's only 18, 19. He filled in at dummy half, and he's actually a half. Phoenix Crossland, that's his name, and so he's an up and coming half in the Hunter Valley playing junior footy, and I think I'd be tempted to give him a run. I mean, it's going to develop his game, and it's going to be beneficial for the Newcastle in the future down the track next year. So next year they've got a ready-made halfback who's had half a year of experience in first grade. So now with Blake Green coming across, he's not going to be playing, and he can't play any reserve grade, so he's missing game time. And is the signing? Is it just this year? You do know?
Yeah, I think it's. I'm not 100% sure of the particulars. I'd have to look that up. But yeah. I didn't realise they still had Lenor as well. So I don't understand why that isn't an option.
And he's proven to be. And Tex Hoy. I mean, they've got.
Yeah, Tex Hoy is definitely an option.
Stacks of utility in the weightings, and I mean, Mason Leno's proved he can be more than handy backup. But they've gone. So Blake Green shifts into 5'8" next week, which will be interesting to see. But where does those poor Warriors? Where does it leave them? I mean, they're going to really struggle without Blake Green. He's been their general, their organizer this year, and I can't see them winning too many games without him, to be honest.
Yeah. So who even goes as their? They got Rick Nikorima and Harris Tavita.
Chanel Harris. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's been playing off the bench. I mean, he's an adequate replacement, but I just think Green's experience will be invaluable lost.
Speaking of Warriors, how good is Jack Hetherington?
What a pickup the loan has been for the Warriors. I mean, it's so, I'm so glad the NRL's approved this because it gives players like these who wouldn't normally be given an opportunity to play, and they can now apply their trade at the Warriors and get some experience. And he's a bit of a beast, isn't he? He just loves the action, loves the thick of it. Had a fight with Hargraves last week and backed up another performance this week.
Yeah, I think he just needs to control his discipline, and I think he'd be a great player.
Yeah, he's a bit of a nutter, but I love the hot heads.
To be honest, I think he's a future Origin player if he can control himself.
Rago's big call there. It's one of our new segments.
Yeah.
Kick it off with Hetherington and Origin Bolter in the next couple of years.
All right. Well, what games are you looking forward to this week?
Gee, there's not much to choose from. Slim pickings this week. It looks like one of the more easier weeks to tip. I mean, it's easier to say that now, but who knows what can happen down the track. But I think Titans and Cowboys, both lower down the ladder, but I think both these teams, it's a Queensland derby, whatever you want to say, and I think these guys will both be hungry to prove their opposite city wrong and try and get the win.
Well, they're playing really great football at the moment, even
Titans.
though... Well, both of them. I mean, even Cowboys against Raiders probably should have won that game. I mean, they definitely had a couple of calls go against them that backfired. But, yeah, I mean, even the Titans have been playing well. They had a good performance against Roosters. So I think these are two underperforming sides which will be desperate for a win. For me personally, looking forward to this round, I think Penrith and Raiders and Newcastle and Tigers, like those two games are the games I will be looking at. Especially the Raiders. I think they can probably pick up an upset against the Penrith. I guess that would be interesting to see. Tigers and Newcastle will also be a good one to watch because I think Tigers will be hungry for a win, especially after that Warriors performance.
Yeah.
I think they will be desperate to get back and hit back into contention for the top 8.
Yeah, Canberra and Penrith. That is the game of the round. That'll be a blockbuster. Saturday, 7:30. I mean, Canberra. They continue to show that even though without the players they've got, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
And also, don't count out the Sharks against Parramatta. I think Cronulla have some great attacking options and can really test that Parramatta defence, which has been so strong this year. So that one be a good. So it might be an easy, objectively looking, it might be an easy week to tip, but I think there will be some upsets on the cards here.
With the way I'm going, I'll probably still get 3 or 4 right, so I can't say anything. So we'll finish with our bold predictions. Rago, what's your big bold prediction for this week of footy?
I'm gonna say Cronulla to upset the Parramatta Eels.
Oh, I like it. I think a lot of people, if you're not a Parramatta fan, obviously would love to see that. I mean, we're just been waiting for Parra to get knocked off.
All right. Well, what's your bold prediction then?
I'll say Knights' new recruit Blake Green to make an immediate impact for the Knights and have a stormer of a game and Knights to beat the Tigers.
All right. Well, those are some big calls. I think Blake Green's probably edging to not being so much of a bold prediction. But, yeah, I mean, he hasn't had the best year. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that will be bold. And it is hard to make a direct impact into a new team, especially definitely. He hasn't even trained. I think he just signed. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Got to learn all the plays in a week.
Yeah.
All right, and that'll do us for another second episode of the NRL Point of Difference podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer this week, but there was a lot of issues to get through. Hope we didn't bore you for too much. And we'll see you next week. Enjoy the round of footy.
All right. See you then.